Hi everyone. We have I should say, we finally have our patch notes for the patch coming out tomorrow as I'm recording this video. Today, if you're watching it after the fact, but this patch will go live by the time I post up this video. Well, it'll be up the day I post this video. So let's run through it. There's quite a bit to it, so we might be here for a little while because I like to ramble on about a lot of things. First notice combat interface. First of all, praise be to the interface workers at Riot for adding these things. They are great and we love them. Um, you can now tab to toggle the combat recap, which is great because I hate clicking it. It's kind of in a miserable spot and I never want to click it. So being able to just press tab, bring it up, and then you can press A to toggle the left tile. These are good. These are good buttons. I like these buttons. I will approve of this. Large changes. There's a bunch of augment changes. I don't really want to go through every single one of them, but I will go through some of the more important things. You no longer can get 3 economy augments in the same round. This was pretty brutal if this happened in the final. You're on your final augment. Your first augment, it's not that bad. Your second augment, it's kind of eh. Your last augment, it's pretty bad when you got 3 economy augments. I probably would have settled for just making it so you can't get it in the final augment slot, but here we are. Well, I guess Windfall is usually pretty fine to see there, but most of the economy augments you don't want to see late. Windfall might be the only one I'm like, yeah, I'll take this. Um, Time left to choose decreased by 2 seconds. That's because of a bug. Um, there's a bug that by doing this it fixes, and they give you a lot of time anyway. Electrocharge. So a bunch of augments now scale based on the number of augments you have. So Electrocharge will now scale based on the number of augments you have. Is this a typo? Why does it go? Because you only get 3. Oh, hyper roll, I guess. Starts at stage 2, 3. Okay. Oh, it scales on stage. I thought it scaled on number of augments. I wonder if they changed that. Because I could have sworn they said it was going to scale with the number of augments you have. But, alright. We'll scale with stage starting at 2. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Anyway, same thing is being done with Luden's Echo. It'll scale along. It's still probably a very good augment early. Even though it looks like it got a nerf at 2. It's a little buff at 3. But as you can see, it's a lot better now. Innovator Heart is now a gold tier. Innovator Soul is now removed. We need to be clear on Innovator. Innovator Soul was a free top 2. It really was. You just played 7 Innovator, and it was the most freest thing you could ever do in this game. Even if you didn't play Innovator 7, you could play Innovator 5 and drop the weakest ones, and then have some ungodly composition because you were playing 5 Innovator in a composition you had no business playing 5 Innovator in. This needed to go. I just don't think there was a good solution at this point in the game. It's been around long enough for us all to understand that Innovator Soul was absolutely cracked. And Innovator Heart, like, you can't get it in the early game anymore. It was so bust. You just fast up 5 Innovator and you were 100 by the time we got to stage 5. You had 100 HP at stage 5. It's just too free. So it's now gold, and you can't get its first one anymore. It's been like that for a while. Share the spotlight stats reduced. I don't think I've ever even gotten share the spotlight. Um, so small. Um, so small is very good actually. It's one of the better augments. It can. It also kind of is a feels bad pretty often. You'd often hit it, and your opponent would miss their attacks that they needed to hit to kill you, and it became pretty feels bad. But either way, they moved it from a silver to a gold, but at 25% was probably not going to be enough for it to be a gold, so they upped to 30% dodge chance. But most importantly, most important part of the patch, your yordles will now actually be smaller. Trait changes, big change to Enforcer. How do I want to say this? I personally don't think there was a big issue with Enforcer, but I understand the logic between what Riot was saying on Enforcer. So the main thing with Enforcer is that it's too easy to play, particularly being able to play Sejuani plus Vi or Vi plus Jace. It's just too easy to play. You just play it and you get this 2 Enforcer piece for free that locks down the highest health target for 3 seconds, which in reroll metas was almost always the carry. It was one thing for it to be the tank, but when you got up to 3-star and it being the carry every time, that was a bit problematic. And that point I do agree with. I think in hindsight, if Riot had a second bite at this, they probably would have never released Enforcer. It's particularly on this half set, it's been really bad. So they're changing Enforcer from being a 2-4 piece to just a pure 3 piece. So you have to have 3 units to get it, and for putting it in, you get 4 seconds. I don't think this is going to be worthwhile unless you're playing Vi, Sedge, Jace. Literally just those 3 units. I don't think there's really any other situation where you're even going to waste time playing Enforcer. So the only time you do that is if you have a Brawler frontline and you have an extra spot for a Jace. Like, that's it. Like I said, the only composition I believe that would even make any sense in would be Brawler Renata. I don't see how else you play this at all. Hextech now gets a little bit of a rework. All of its numbers now scale with the number of augments in the hex core, which thematically actually is kind of brilliant. So at each stage, so the Hextech shield and magic damage per augment increased by 20%, and here's the base scaling for it. I do worry that this change is actually a pretty good buff. This is a pretty significant buff to Hextech to the point that I suspect that Hextech will be a pretty good comp. We're just gonna have to wait and see. I don't want to say it's not gonna be as good as when Hextech was kind of busted, but like these numbers for the base shield combined with this 20% buff, it's a lot. It's quite a lot, especially if you like hit an early 2 and you get your second augment. Like, this is a lot of shielding to get every time the hex score goes off. Attack damage reduction. So long story short, nearly every champion in the game is getting a AD reduction. The main goal of this is to just slow down combat of AD champions. I probably would have just lowered attack speed, in my opinion. I know that would have hurt AP champions as well, but I feel like lowering AD, I'm not sure how I feel. I also think a lot of these numbers are kind of just complete shots in the dark. Most of them are just 5, but a few of them are like 10. And I'm kind of unsure about where everything is going to be with some of these changes. Like, we all have to kind of understand that not everything is getting hit the same. Everything is getting hit, but it's getting hit to different degrees. It's kind of going to be difficult to tell where all the AD carries stand in terms of their damage. Like, a good example, and we'll get to this later. Where is Twitch? Twitch is in here somewhere. Oh, Warwick's another one. Warwick and Talon were only decreased by 5, but there's some of the... Well, Talon's not really a good example. Warwick was only decreased by 5. Where is Twitch? Do I have to actually search for him? I know he's in... Oh, here's Twitch. Twitch was only reduced by 5. Twitch is one of the better carries in the game. Reroll Twitch is one of the best comps in the game. But his AD was only 50, and they reduced it by 5. I don't know if that's going to do anything. At all. Alright, moving on. Caitlyn attack speed buff. I've heard that this number is actually kind of crazy, and that Caitlyn early carry might actually be pretty good. This is just rumors I've heard on this patch. I can see it. I don't know if it actually happened. Did Caitlyn got an AD nerf as well. It's only 5, so she should actually just be better than what she was before with this attack speed boost. Yeah, I kind of like this. Being able to take a 2-star Caitlyn and just kind of hold it out as your item carrier in the early game seems like a good idea. So this one's new. Quinn is getting a reduction, both to his 3-star damage and the duration of the disarm by half a second. The disarm, I think my issue with the disarm is that it's AoE. Like, it hits a lot of units. Um, but going after the time for it, I think it's fine because the it being AoE is okay because he actually requires a lot of mana to cast. But they reduced the instead of reducing that and getting rid of the AoE, they just reduced the duration, which I guess is okay. I still think he's going to be very good, but I do think like this part needed to get changed. This 700 to 650 needed to happen. That was too much damage he did. Swain is one of the worst champions in the game. I'm gonna be honest. These numbers I don't think will do much. Uh, he could be a possible decent frontliner for early Arcanist, but Arcanist is kind of a meh comp. He has Swain needs to be better for Arcanist to be better, I think. So that way you can have two frontliners with Vex and Swain rather than Vex solo frontline. Oh, and Warwick. Warwick's on hunger heal. Yeah, the heal is it needed to be reduced. Um, the biggest issue with his on hit heal is Titans because Titans scales his AP up. This number gets really big, like, and this gets up to like 100 HP per hit, even at like 2-star. Um, so these numbers needed a good bop on the head. Tier 3 units, Malthazar. This is actually a good change. So let's explain what's going on here with Malthazar. The real issue here is Synaptic Mutant. Synaptic Mutant plus blue buff Malthazar is auto cast. He will just cast every time and just blow you out. It's probably the highest tier comp in the game. If you get Synaptic Mutant Malthazar with blue buff, he will just win every fight. So they needed to change something, but they didn't want to touch Synaptic Mutant. So instead, they gave him a mana nerf. They upped him from 3060 to 5080 while increasing his attack speed and also just touching the damage a bit. Good change. Very good change. I actually like this. Not only that, it also makes Sojin a much better item on him. And I like the idea of having a range of champions where both Sojin and blue buff are adequate items. Like, having to force a blue buff every game is kind of painful. Being able to have the option of going Sojin if you can't find that second tier is very useful. Tier 4 units, Irelia. Irelia is going from 30 to 40 mana. I'm just gonna nod. This needed to happen. Meanwhile, the base damage is being reduced, just slightly. I think the 1-star number is probably very relevant, but the 2-star number probably not so much. Essentially now a 1-star Irelia on a Socialite 3 hex probably will not blow through your entire comp backline. But a 2-star probably still will. Which is what Irelia should be doing. I do think this max mana nerf was we were probably pretty desperate to have this happen. This was getting kind of out of control. So now Irelia is going to require, I think it's now going to be 2 autos to ult, which it's was needed. It really was. Irelia, being able to have Irelia, position Irelia such that she could walk up to a squishy unit and then kill that and then run through your entire backline it's painful. Tier 5 units, Galio is getting buffs because no one's playing Galio, and it's really disheartening because Galio is actually not terrible. It's just a matter of finding the builds that he's good with. Put IEs on your Galio. You'll feel better about yourself. Jace, slight touch to Jace, range Jace. This is very, very minor. I think they even put this under a large changes. It probably didn't need to be, but range Jace was a little bit too powerful. Particularly if he got 3-star. 3-star was kind of a joke. His autos actually would one-shot. It's kind of funny. Like, even before his ult, his autos would actually one-shot. So they're toning him down just a tad. I think that's fair. Range Jace is very strong. Silco. So the thing about Silco there wasn't much a difference between Silco 1-star and Silco 2-star. So they wanted to have a way to like show that there's a differentiation between 1-star, 2-star, and 3-star, which apparently someone has done and lost, because I can only imagine how bad 3-star Silco would have been. But when you up his star level, he's now going to get an increased time on the unstable concoction buff, which actually is a pretty good change, I think. Uh, and if you 3-star him, the explosion size is now double, so you don't have your units exploding on nothing and being really sad about it, which is funny as hell. Zerry Bug fix. This is a bug fix, but they have it under large changes because it actually really is a big change to Zerry. Um, so Zerry is no longer capped at 1 attack speed, which means that she can benefit from Rage Blade. There's some thoughts that this particular change could be part. I'm saying part of what makes Zerry one of the best units on this new patch coming up. Also, the fact that they've lowered a bunch of AD, but Zerry scales pretty well with both AD and AP, so that the AD nerf probably doesn't actually hit her that hard. Like, i.e., it's not her best item. Her best item is freaking static. I can't explain that. I think that's also why they added this, where the 1-star and 2-star, the passive bonus magic damage per bullets being dropped. I assume they did some internal testing, and because this I think is new. I don't think this was on the original list of patch notes, but they're dropping the damage a bit, which I think is fair. Edge of Night. Units who are stealth can now attack and cast ability. Huh. I don't remember reading about this. I'm gonna have to read this one for a second here. Okay, so I guess if I'm reading this right, when it triggers, units who are stealth can now attack. So if it triggers, it doesn't have that like stop time. So anytime this triggered, there was like this odd pause between on the unit where it like didn't do anything. I guess they've gotten rid of that. I don't know. Small changes. Component grab back can no longer grab through this thing. I got triple cloak. I had triple cloak. I had an opener where I had 5 cloaks because of this augment. I had 5 cloaks. I got my carousel item, which was, I believe, I ended up with a belt. I got a bad line. Ended up having to take a belt, and then got 5 cloaks. Send help. Cybernetic Nerf. Cybernetic's actually one of the better, in general, combat augments. You can really abuse it to get like absurd stats. Golden Egg. The 100 loot drop is now becoming 75 and giving you attack crown. Because Golden Egg, lol. Golden Ticket for Entry reroll got a buff. That's interesting. I would have thought this was one of the best economy ones in the game. Surprised. High-end shopping buff, lifelong learning buff, rich get richer buff. I'm just kind of trying to call out some of the ones that are interesting. Sharpshooter, bounce to reduce damage. Oh yeah, this is for the twin shot reroll comps. Yeah, that Lucian comp is very strong. So they're just lowering the damage on that from this augment. Smoke Bomb Threshold is being changed from 60 to 7. This is neither a nerf nor a buff. The issue is 60% was the trigger percentage for I think it's the Radiant version of Edge of Night. It'll trigger at 60%. Something triggers at this as well, and it made it awkward because both of these would trigger at the same time, so they just changed the number so it triggered at a different percentage. Tiny Titan no longer available to Ian. Titanic Force nerf. Woodland Trinket health from 30 to 60 to help it survive like a single auto attack in the late game. Please. Actually like Woodland Trinket. Even in the late game it's good. You just like you don't want to be attacked. You don't want your unit that you have with Woodland Trinket like ever actually getting attacked. And they nerfed Minstrel because I think in hindsight, Future Sight 2 should not have existed. That's kind of my opinion on the matter, is that Future Sight 2 should not be a thing. But They have to balance the fact that you can get Minstrel from the Radiant Forge and the Future Sight too. So they have to. They're trying to keep that balanced. Traits. This isn't even worth talking about. They nerfed the Innovator, Scarab, and Bear, and barely, I might add. Ezreal Textures. The reason. Okay, this was an interesting one. So, if I recall correctly, if we go back up to, we'll just go back up. I don't believe Ezreal is actually on this list, and the reason Ezreal is not actually on this list, yes, he is not on the list, is because Ezreal already had 40 AD. So they wanted to weaken Ezreal without making him like below like caster levels of AD. So they just nerfed the attack speed boost on his ult instead. Corki, Corki bombardment damage is getting a nerf. This is actually like I think a kind of sizable nerf to Corki combined with the AD nerf, because Corki did a lot of damage through auto attacks along with this spell. So it's kind of like an across-the-board nerf here for Corki. So I'm curious to see where the reroll twin shot comp is going to land, particularly with it getting kind of as many nerfs as it's been getting. Rek'Sai minor mana buff not worth talking about. Sejuani health going up by 100. Oh, well, now that I say that, Sejuani like kind of got crushed in a nerf a few patches ago, and like doesn't ever see play unless you were like desperately playing bruisers. So maybe this was kind of necessary. I don't know. Yeah. Vex shield nerf. Oh, there's thoughts that Vex Riot thinks Vex will be kind of really good on this next patch, and is just taking the preemptive nerf here. I don't know if that's true. Zac Yoink damage reduction buff. Zac's not strong enough for a bruiser frontliner. He kind of does need a little help. At least I think. And Draven. Draven is getting a. So my understanding is there was some bug with Draven that they fixed in this patch that they're not talking about. I think it's in the. I think they actually bring it up in the bug fixes, but they're not. They don't really talk about it anywhere here or like what exactly it did. But my understanding was that it was like it did something to the armor penetration values. I'm not quite sure what was going on, but some players apparently found it out and it never actually hit the Reddit, so everyone wouldn't abuse it. But I think they're nerfing him because they got rid of that in particular, and they thought that there was some other reason. I don't know. I'm not quite sure why this one came round and round. There was something fishy going on with Draven, and they ended up having to nerf him. Double up. They changed reinforcement minimum time. Apparently, Mortdog's really happy about this and thinks double up is going to be a lot better because of it. I don't know. There's some other double up changes here. Player damage has been slightly recalculated. I don't play double up, so I'm not going to go into it. I have no friends that want to play this game, and that's really upsetting to me. Meanwhile, Mercenaries is getting probably the biggest change in double up. So if you lose a mercenary round but your teammate wins, that's considered half a loss, and it's considered still like a 0 loss. It rounds down. But if you and your teammate both lose, that's considered 1 loss for Mercenaries. But if you lose and your teammate wins, and then the next round you lose and your teammate wins, that counts as 1 loss because you got 2 half losses. Long story short, that's how Mercenary has changed. Hey, you can see the augments now on the mobile. Bug fixes. Yeah, the Zerry cap that we talked about before. Renata poison. Oh, of course, it can now crit while Sharpshooter is active. Yeah, I think the deflection shot on Sharpshooter like wasn't proccing on crit, or crits were not proccing on it. I guess is how I should say it. Ooh, spells don't crit without crit problem. Yeah, so the dragon was causing Jewel Gauntlet triggers for reasons. True Justice is back and balanced. Maybe. It was basically, if you didn't know, after I think it was the C patch, True Justice was basically disabled. They didn't even fix it. It was just disabled. I don't think they could fix it, but it was such a big bug they just disabled it. No, until Corki will fizzle and okay. So quick note on Corki: you will still see the spell fizzle, but the explosion still happen. So don't report this one anymore. This has been fixed. It just doesn't look right. Dragonclaw, first take, properly spit out. Needs double up. Okay, so that's it. I'm gonna be honest. Normally at this point in time, I would go through and tell you where I expect a lot of the meta to run to. I can't. All of these AD changes completely throw everything up in the air, and I have no idea what's going to be left standing. I suspect Hextech will be pretty good. The Hextech changes and buffs were pretty strong, and Sivir didn't really get a lot of nerfs here. So I suspect it'll be pretty good. Irelia might have gotten hit in the head a little too hard, particularly at 1-star. If you're going to play Irelia and you can't hit 2-star, you're just dead. I don't think there's anything you can do. Enforcer is basically never going to see play unless you're playing brawlers. If you're playing a brawler frontline, you might find a way to fit Enforcer in. But otherwise, I don't know how you fit Enforcer in your comps anymore. Anything else worth noting? I don't really think there's much else worth noting. There is a possibility that I think Jhin and Brawler frontliners will both probably be a lot better on this patch with the changes to AD. Just slowing down combat always makes Jhin better, and slowing down combat always makes Brawlers better. So that's kind of the direction I'll take on where I expect this patch to kind of end up landing. So hope you all enjoyed that. This patch will be dropping the day I post up this video. And hopefully we won't see a C, but we might see a B patch next week. I think all of these AD changes make it kind of possible we might see a retuning of some things based on how some of these changes went. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I'll see you all around, and peace out.